Hey adventurers, so today is going to be my quarter 4 MBR, KBR, MBR, whatever I'm calling it. This is going to be slightly different than the past 3 quarters MBRs have been because I have reduced the number of books that I am having on this list because I think that I will have less time to read this month, in fact, or this quarter. In fact, I know that I will. And so I'm kind of just putting the books on that I really want to try and get to before the end of the year. I don't know that I will. I'm not really worried about if I do or not, but I would really like to. And so we'll have the same categories, which is unread, meaning unread from the last quarter, holdovers, which is the books that are held over that I started in the last quarter but haven't finished yet, and then new editions. And I am not going to have any on the holdovers list this time because I think that I will finish the one that I did write down before the quarter ends. So I'm not going to put it on there because I don't think I need to. But anyways, the books that I have on the unread list are Taliesin by Stephen R. Lawhead. This is the first book in the Pendragon cycle. I've talked about this plenty of times as to why I want to read it, so I'm not going to continue. I'm not going to say it again. The next one is Beowulf by Seamus Heaney. This is a book that, and a story that I have needed to read forever, and I just never have read it, and that's kind of a shame and kind of something that I need to remedy because I need to have read this book. It's too important to the fantasy genre and to Tolkien and to really everything that I really like about fantasy for me not to have read it. Next one I have is The Last of the Mohicans by James Fenimore Cooper. The reason why this one is still on here is because when I went to read this, I remembered that, oh wait, there's a book that takes place chronologically before that, which is The Deerslayer, and so instead of reading The Last of the Mohicans, I read The Deerslayer. I could still get to this one in quarter 3 so I'm filming this on September 17th, and so I might still have time to get to this one on audiobook, which is probably how I'll do it. But as of right now, I haven't read it yet, and so it's going on to this unread for quarter 4 list. Then I have Nevada by Zane Grey. This is a Western. I really like Westerns. The 2 Zane Greys that I've read, I've really enjoyed, and so I'm expecting to really enjoy Nevada as well, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. This is one, Westerns as a genre I really enjoy, and most of the time when I'm reading them, I'm extremely happy to be reading one, and they're a great break from so much of the other stuff that I read, but I am never feeling pressed to actually read a Western, and so it's one of those that when I get time and when I'm just really feeling like it, I'm just gonna grab the book and I'm gonna read it. And it's 217 pages, and so it's short, they read quick. I'm not worried about reading this at all, I just haven't done it yet. The last on this unread list is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is a series that now has a whole bunch of books out in it beyond just the Red Rising trilogy, and I want to read it. Red Rising and the Red Rising trilogy, I have the first 3 books, so I want to read all of those, but I need to get started with Red Rising at least. This is sci-fi. This is kind of like epic, grand. This first book, from what I understand, kind of feels a bit like Hunger Games or something like that, and so I'm not entirely sure how all that works, but I want to read it. I need to read more sci-fi, and I know this is a very popular series at the moment, and I think that I will like it. I just haven't read it yet. Continuing on to the holdovers, as I mentioned, I didn't have any holdovers, so we'll just continue on to new editions. For this year, or for this quarter, I am going to continue trying to read 2 Redwall books per quarter, at least 2 Redwall books per quarter, and the 2 that I have listed are The Legend of Luke and Tagaron, which I don't own physically. So The Legend of Luke is the direct sequel to Mossflower. So Mossflower is the direct sequel to, that's not actually true. So let me see if I can figure this out. Mossflower is the second book that Brian Jacques wrote in the Redwall world, and it's the second book that he wrote, and then he went back later and wrote Martin the Warrior, which is a prequel to Mossflower, and then he wrote The Legend of Luke, which is a sequel to Mossflower. That's how that works. So this is the only book, the only third book in a mini-series in the Redwall series, type thing. Basically, the only time a character appears a third time, the main cast appears a third time in a series, and this actually, that's used as a framing device. It then goes back and becomes a prequel to Martin the Warrior. Actually, takes place before the events of Martin the Warrior. The main story does, because it's the legend of Luke who is Luke is the father of Martin the Warrior. So that's how that works. I do want to read this. I've read it before. I like this story, but I want to read it again. As for Tagarong, this is one of my top 3, probably my favorite Redwall book that I've read. I've reread it probably the most, probably 5-6 times or something like that. Wow, that's a lot. But it's probably true. I probably read this one 5 or 6 times, and I love this book, and I want to reread it again so that I can actually do a review of it. Moving on through, I have the other new editions. I've got Tribe of the Accord by Sean Michael Stone. This is a self-published fantasy book that is a prehistoric fantasy. The author sent it to me to read it and review, and I told him I'll read it and review it. I'll review it after I've read it, but I can't guarantee when I will read it. But I do want to get to it hopefully before the end of the year. This is one of the ones that I think I will really enjoy. I would like to get to it before the end. Then I have The Elementals by Abby Latanzio. This is a traditionally published by a small publishing company, which is Curious Curls Publishing, and they reached out to me, asked if I would be willing to read and review this book. I said sure. I don't know when I'll get to it, but I will give it an honest review when I have. But this sounds like it is about 4 brothers who have elemental magic, and that's enough to make me interested in reading this book. I don't know when I'll get to it, but it's also got a pretty cover. Then I have Nicholas Raven and the Wizard's Web by Thomas J. Pristopnik, specifically Volume 1. I want to get to Volume 1 this year, if I can. This is one that I have all 3 of the volumes in this series, in this book, whatever, an epic fantasy in 3 volumes, but I have all 3 of the volumes. I haven't read it yet. The author reached out to me. His story really resonated with me in a lot of ways, and I do want to read this series. I just haven't done it yet. I plan to try and get to this before the end of the year, this first volume. Yeah, epic fantasy. And then the last book on this list is The Wickwire Watch by Jacqueline Hagan. This is one that I've heard lots of people on BookTube talk about, specifically Tori and Kayla and Andrew, and I want to read it, and I think that I'm really going to love it. Tori was nice enough to send this to me, and so I feel kind of obligated to read. No, I don't really, but I do want to read this one as soon as I can. I should put it on this side because I don't know how much you can see of that. Anyways, let's continue finishing this up here real quick. Well, sorry if this looks a little bit different. The camera ran out of storage, so I've got to finish this up. Basically, all that I was saying is that Tori pitches this one as Oliver's Twist meets Howl's Moving Castle, so I want to see what that's about. I don't know how that's going to work, but it does intrigue me, and yeah, that's really all that I'm going to say. I do think that I will enjoy that book, though. I forgot to include 2 books that I do plan on reading in this final quarter, and the first one is obviously The Hobbit. I'm going to be I do a reread of The Hobbit usually every December, and it's at least every year sometime, and so I'm planning on rereading The Hobbit at least, and so I needed to make sure I mentioned that. And then the other one is Secret Project number 4, which I for some reason just completely blanked on the fact that was coming out as well, and so that's the other one that I will have on this list. So this is my quarter 4 MBR. I think I'm going to have less time to physically read, and so I'm going to limit the amount of books that I put on this MBR to try and actually get to as many of them as I can. But that is all that I really have to say about this. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We post these every Monday and Thursday, and actually I'm also doing Saturdays for a second review to try and help with getting through some of the reviews that I need to get through before the end of the year. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay well.